Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music. One of the go-to tools in an Epic Composer's kit, composers for film, video games, etc., something called modal modulation or modal exchange. Great way to get new harmonies. I've talked about it a lot on this channel, but there's a sort of a byproduct of it that gives us great melodies as well. And since I'm interested in melody right now, my question to myself is, how can I use modal exchange or modal modulation or just conforming a melody to a new scale? How can I use that trick to create new colors for old melodies or for a melody that maybe is a short phrase that I like, but I don't know what to do with? Modal exchange, modal modulation, conforming to a scale is a clever way to get new emotional colors into an existing phrase. I've got 6 short examples, so let's take a look at them today. Well, first of all, if this is the second or third video of mine you've seen, and you're getting something out of it, and you're not subscribed to the channel, now's the time to subscribe, hit the like button, leave me a comment about what's up for you, what might be useful, what you're doing. You know, I mean, this is music theory. I'm not going to make any bones about that. We're talking about the nuts and bolts of putting stuff together, but not in an academic way. I'm really interested in talking about music theory as it might apply to what you need to know. And I guess I would say this is music theory for everyone, right? It's what I guess it's sort of what I wish that, I'd been taught when I was coming up, right? So, listen, this is just trying to be useful. And there's lots of different names and ways of describing anything. My teacher used to say, Chris, you've got to become your own theorist. It was Dr. Roland Wiggins. He studied with Schillinger. I want to talk a little bit about conforming to scale or modal modulation. And it's actually not terribly hard to visualize if you see it on the screen. Listen, here's a simple sort of pentatonic scale. I might call it A minor. But it's very easy to picture these 5 notes as being a member of some scale, right? They could be the 5 notes from a C scale, the pentatonic scale. They could be 5 notes from the key of G. I suppose there's other possibility as well. There could be from the key of F. But listen, if I get a little bit further afield, I will have to change some of those notes. I'm going to keep all the same letters, G, A, C, D, and E. But if I wished, for instance, to make this in the key of E flat major, the E would become E flat and the A would become A flat. I've now conformed this set of notes to a new scale. And if I had written a melody in C, now in E flat, I would get, and really, I mean, emotionally, those are very different colors. You take my point, right? It's fascinating. Well, any melodic phrase or arpeggio you can come up with, that is to say just single sets of notes, one after the other, can be conformed to a new scale in a way that's interesting. So here's my first example. A minor, A Dorian minor, the F sharp. So here we go. And then I'm going to reconform that to F major. The F becomes natural, the B becomes flat. And now D flat Lydian. Each of these changes are really just changes to the spelling of the individual notes. I'm getting a new set of pitches that correspond to a new key. And as that set moves through the composition, I get waves of, I guess I would just call them emotional colors. Because of the way notes are placed within a scale, as the figure changes, the meaning of a note changes. As I begin here, the A is the root of that figure. And A minor, A Dorian, it just sounds kind of lovely and stable. But it's a very different feeling when the A, the bottom note, is the major third. And then I have to say that D flat Lydian sound that we just heard has a very interesting sort of, I guess I would just say, meaning, right? And then when I relax back into F, it kind of settles me into a new space. That's the whole point of using this trick. Let's go on. My next example is like what I showed you when I was reviewing the idea. Here we've got a simple melodic phrase in C major, which we're going to conform to new scales to get new colors. The basic melodic contour and even the notes of the, it's an E, it's a D, but is it D flat? Is it, those things don't change, and yet I get a different kind of like feeling out of it. Here, there's the simple C major phrase. And here it is with a little C pulse, right? But what would it be like in C minor? The E is flat, the A is flat. And then an E major sound, right? Back to C. Each of them has their own identity. G flat major. The minor version of that. And I'm kind of like pushing it a little bit here, right? As I stretch into new areas. There's my C major again. C minor. C major. You may be familiar with the idea of borrowed chords, snagging chords from the parallel major and minor, and this has a similar type of feeling, doesn't it? But we can go much further if we think about respelling, right? Let's go on. My next example I think of as versions of D. So if I have this D minor 7 arpeggio, it could be D minor 7, or I could have a major third and a major 7th, it would be D major 7. It, I suppose, could be minor major 7, although I don't use that here. And then let's respell the root and the 5th to get D flat major 7. This is called the slide in Neo-Riemannian theory. I think of it as a slip. I feel like it's slipping more than sliding, but I grew up in central Maine and I'd much rather slip than slide. Listen to the harmonic shifts, though, that we get. We get different colors out of a very simple pattern. Notice how I put the third in the bass. This emphasizes the color as we go to the major third. Back down to the D minor 7. This would make a great background texture, good for games. And now we're in kind of an unusual world here. I guess I would have to call that like F sharp minor, right? As I push the bass up, and now a diminished chord sound, which feels kind of dominant. Sort of a sus sound. Another dominant sound, an A dominant sound that resolves to D major 7. That whole thing is one kind of like journey upwards. And those kinds of chords where individual notes move up and then another one comes after it, and then you move one in the middle and then two of them chase it. You can get into some unusual places, and this is a great way to do it. I'm basically kind of gradually, slowly morphing my chord shape until I get to where I want to go. Let's go on. The next example is another respelling chord progression. I've got C, C minor, back to C, and then beautifully C sharp minor. This is a classic sort of epic trick. And in a way, that C sharp minor feels like the outsider, doesn't it? Well, each of those chords has a scale associated with it. And so it makes for just a beautiful way to create what feels to me like a very romantic sort of melody over the top. And you'll see I use a freer relationship to those chords in this melody than I used in the previous examples. Like all good melodies, we have wide intervals, narrow intervals, different rhythms. We want to have a high point. We want to feel like the melody is a conversation. This is very much out of the romantic piano kind of concept, right? Where melodic tones are chosen for their relationship to the chords. So the poignancy of, say, that note, the ninth, against the C sharp minor is exploited melodically. It wants to go somewhere, right? It makes for a really interesting approach. Well, let's look at our next example. We've got two more. This is a straightforward, full-on, just rhythmic pattern. And I'm using another respelling approach. Look at these chords. A minor 9. And then the next one is A major 9. And then the last one is A flat major 9. A lot of those chords have notes in common. As you shift from one to the other, we get a qualitative change, but it sort of stays in place. This is great for underscoring where you don't want a lot of like motion around the sound field, but you want to subtly shift the, I don't know, just feeling state of the harmonic language. And basically what I'm doing here is a little drumming pattern, a triad against two notes, 4 against 3, 4 in the right hand, 3 in the left. It's a fun rhythm. I love this rhythm. I'm allowing myself to drift out of those three chords, aren't I? And I've wound up sinking down and down and down on F sharp major 9. What the heck? Why not, right? It's sort of where I wanted to go with it. Let's go on. Our last example is well, you know how much I like a good interlocking hands pattern and drumming those hands. So here are the shapes. The right hand shape, and then against that, the left hand shape. And so I've got what I think of as a modally saturated collection of notes. And then I'm just kind of like shift around. So that was my first shape. This is my second shape, and F sharp kind of minor against that. So I've kind of gone from a kind of a C9 against the F to a kind of A major 11, they call it E major 7. I'm thinking of it kind of as an A Lydian sound because of the two C sharps. Anyway, like that, right? And then the last shape, instead of C major, C minor, instead of F major, F minor. So the colors, again, shifting spelling, shifting quality. You hear how they just kind of work, and you can see them on the screen. This is kind of a C major world. This is kind of an E or A major world, and this is a C minor world. So here I'm drumming the hands, playing a collection of notes in one hand and a collection of notes in the other, one note at a time. Makes for a long phrase, right? 3 times through the 4-note pattern, 4 times through the 3-note pattern. In fact, let's look at this right here. So if you look at these top notes here, that's 3 notes in the course of this pattern. The pattern begins here and ends here. Down at the bottom, you can see how the four notes of the four-note pattern relate. I'm getting a resultant melody from the interaction of the differing lengths. Oops, and I modulated to C Lydian because I wanted that F sharp at the end. Beautiful sound, right? Modal modulation, conforming that new melody to a new scale, can add color to an existing phrase or motif, a little melody that you like. And you can use those colors to create shape in a longer composition. It's a fundamental technique in a contemporary epic scoring to use modal exchange in chords. And we can use it in melody and in any orchestration. Minimalist composers like Steve Reich, Terry Riley, use this kind of trick all the time. And in truth, it's not so different from what jazz musicians do when they blow over changes. You'll have to know your scales to pull it off, but what a better, I can't think of a better reason to know your scales. It's a powerful trick. And I hope this was useful. Like and subscribe as I asked you at the top of the video. Like this video, leave me a comment. Is this useful for you? I'll see you next time.